If you've ever watched any of my content, you know that I encourage people to reach out to me if they have questions, comments, or thoughts. And there's a reason for that. Is because when people reach out, it allows me to gain a better understanding and a better sense of what is happening in the comic book community and the market. So I benefit greatly from people reaching out to me. But a subscriber by the name of Terry recently sent me a message, and it is a rather long message, so I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but I think that there are parts of what he asks or comments on that I think might be relevant for other folks out there. And I'm going to tie it all together in terms of how now could be a fantastic time for you to build an amazing comic book collection. But Terry in his comment says, I'm currently at a standstill with purchasing anything because I'm really disappointed with the downward direction of the market, all while chasing some of my favorite books. So many great keys are dropping so low. In a way, that's great because I've been able to grab books I wouldn't normally be able to grab. But the downside is that I don't like that these beautiful classics are losing value. My question is, do you feel a huge part of the decrease is happening based on the new culture of conversations had on social media? I see so many new content creators on YouTube that bash the MCU and DC movies that aren't even fans of comic characters, haven't read one book. And he goes on to talk a little bit about his other observations. What I will tell you is that I don't think that Terry is alone, right? What he is reacting to is the negativity that exists on social media, and there is a lot of it. And part of the reason why it exists is because negativity and controversies sell. They result in a lot more views. Whoever can be the most negative, the most outrageous, tie in some stuff that may be happening out there in the world and push it and shove it into the world of comics, they have the potential to get a lot of clicks and views. And are they wrong for that? I don't know. I don't know whether they're wrong versus seizing an opportunity, right? What I will say to you is that I believe that this negativity does have some impact on comics. But I think what's happening in the world of comics and collectibles is actually much larger than people being negative online. And what I mean by that is when you take a step back and you look at what has happened over the last few years, a lot has happened in the world, and as a result, those things have impacted comic book values, right? Take a step back, look at what happened during COVID. You had all kinds of lockdowns, the world basically shut down. You had a lot of people sitting at home with nothing else to do. You had the government giving away free money. People were saving more money than they normally do because they couldn't go out and buy lattes or take vacations and stuff like that. And so there was a lot of money coming into comics. People were, going through comic book boxes and bins that they haven't touched in decades, right? So there was a lot of attention. Anytime there's attention focused on something, there's going to be an uptick in prices. And that's essentially what we saw during the pandemic. Record-breaking prices for comics and collectibles. We then had, high inflation. We had some unemployment that happened. We had a downward turn in the economy where things began to kind of stagnate. There were fears out there. There was uncertainty as to what was going to happen. Those things absolutely have an impact on comic book values. We went from having a ton of comic book movies and TV shows coming out to people pushing back against the overproduction of movies and TV shows related to comics. Partly because of the poor quality and poor writing. We had an influx of politics into comics, right? People started to scream woke, and as soon as some diversity appeared on screen, it's woke, it's trash, they're indoctrinating. I'm not dismissing some of what people had to say because there is some truth in what they had to say, but the amount of negativity coupled with the record-breaking prices and then the economy being where it is, it created a perfect storm in a lot of ways that put downward pressure on comic book values. Anybody that felt like what happened in 2021, 2022, if you felt that that was going to last forever, you may not have lived long enough, right? These things move in cycles. They move in cycles. You have some crazy highs. You also have some lows. The good times don't last forever, and the bad times also don't last forever. They just feel like they do, right? The reality is that people were spending crazy amounts of money during the pandemic. Crazy amounts of money. People didn't really bat an eye on spending a few hundred to a few $1,000s on comics during the pandemic, myself included, because prices for comics were going up. People felt good, right? They were like, hey, we don't know what's going to happen. We're going to spend this cash. We're going to enjoy life. Now it's very different. Now is a very different thing. People are holding their dollars much more closely than they were before. But here's the thing. If you have the ability to be contrarian, if you have the ability to push back against what everyone else is doing, you could build an amazing comic book collection right now. So as a reminder, this is not financial advice. I am not qualified to give you financial advice, so do not look at this as financial advice, financial guidance, or anything of the kind. Right now, and I can tell you for a fact that I've purchased some books that I would not have purchased a year or 2 years ago just because the values were crazy then for those books, but now they're much more affordable. X-Men issue number 4 is one of them. Blue Marvel issue number 1. X-Men 266. 9.8 of that, 9.8 of Blue Marvel. Those books were going for thousands more than they are right now. I have another book that is inbound that I was also priced out of for a long period of time, but is now much more affordable. I am seizing the opportunity right now to build and enhance my collection because there is less money in the hobby right now. There is less competition where people are pushing up prices because they're fighting for it. There are deals to be had. And if you have the ability to be contrarian, if you have the financial resources to do it, now is the time to buy comics, not 2021, 2022, when everything was at a record high. That was not necessarily the time to buy. It was a great time to sell, but not necessarily the time to buy. Right now is the time to buy. Now, if you have some uncertainty with your job, some uncertainty with your finances, if it's going to be tough on you to spend cash, do not follow this advice. Do not do this. Do not put yourself in a bad financial situation. But if you have some cash, why not buy a book that you've always wanted that you've been priced out of? Now, there's a chance that the values could drop a little bit more, but what happens if they go down another 10, 20%? Is that really material enough to get you to hold off? And how do you know that you're going to time it right where you get the rock bottom price? It's impossible because all of the data that we have at our disposal as collectors is all in hindsight. It is all hours, if not days, if not weeks after the fact that we actually know what has happened. So your ability to time the market, I think, is relatively limited. The negativity that is being expressed online right now is not going to go anywhere. It's probably going to be around. Do not let negative people dissuade you from continuing to enjoy and invest in a hobby that you love. As I mentioned, I'm following my own advice in the sense that I am buying books right now and will continue to do so because the prices are fantastic. And what will happen is I will just wait until there's an upswing in values. And then I will watch the value of my collection increase dramatically because I bought when prices were low and I'm going to watch them rise all the way back up. This is a natural cycle. It is a natural cycle. And if you can lean into being contrarian, you have a chance right now to build an amazing comic book collection if that's what you really want to do. With that said, I'm going to wrap this video up. I want to thank you guys for taking the time to watch. If you want to reach out to me, because you might be the source of my next video, if you want to reach out to me, you can do so on Instagram at Regie Collects. Take care. By the way, if you're looking for something awesome to read, you might want to check out Marcus and Isolation. These are 2 titles from my publishing company, Swoldier Publishing. You can find all the information and make purchases on swoldierpublishing.com.
This thing on? Mic check. I just want to make sure y'all can hear me clearly. Yo, should you practice art? Or should art be your practice? I had a question, so I asked it. Not to anyone specifically, but to my inner God, you know? The one that's gonna be a master. The one that's more than a rapper. The one that's an educator. The one that seeks enlightenment. He travels with concepts. He's got the mindset expansive. He understands that his time combined with travel and concepts makes his mind convex. Sort of like when you look at a brain scan. Straight off meditation, we was concaving until we had that eternal dialogue that created our dialect. Now we in distinct rooms of pure souls having them conversations. Synergy and combination.